Good afternoon. Good afternoon. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B, and it's Taco Thursday, and we have breaking news today. But before we get into that, what's up? What's going on with our co-host Shane Carter? How's it going, Shane?
That's going real good. It's the month of February, which means it's always a good time to reflect on the noble groundhog, as which is the main reason the main reason we celebrate every February. Obviously, right? It's Groundhog Month, as some people call it. That's the main reason for the month, right? Right, Aaron. That's what everyone talks about is Groundhog Day.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely Groundhog Day. There's groundhogs everywhere at HEB, your WalMarts, and everything.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
No, nothing else.
And the entire month of February is to reflect on the noble groundhog.
Yes, shout out to the groundhog.
Uh-huh.
We'll probably get in trouble for that, but well,
I might, but
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Hey, we gotta start it off light because we got some crazy things going on. But before we get into that, we gotta show love to our sponsor. That is What a Clean Solutions. You got the Super Bowl going on. You need to get your couches and everything clean. You don't having you're having friends over. You don't want your stuff looking like trash from everything. So call What a Clean Solution, a family-owned mobile cleaning service that can clean anything from small carpet to even making your car or truck look brand new. Give them a call or a text at 210-790-1410 and use promo code TNT for 5% off your total cleaning. That's promo code TNT at 210-790-1410 for 5% off. So we had it's always perfect for a Thursday when it comes to being Cowboy fans and Cowboy content creators because Dan Quinn is officially the head coach for the Washington Commanders, our bitter rivals down in the Washington or DMV area, might as well call. So I want to get you what's your opinions on Dan Quinn becoming the head coach of the Commanders?
Well, we knew it was going to be either gave him second interviews, and when it came down yesterday after Mike McDonald, the Ravens defensive coordinator, took the Seattle job, it was pretty much if Dan Quinn wasn't going to be the head coach of the Commanders, he was going to come back to the Cowboys. Now that he's gone, the candidate list is down to Joe Witt, whether or not he'll stay or he'll follow Dan Quinn to Washington. There's outside candidates like people have mentioned Ron Rivera being one, which I'm not really a fan of. I would like to see Mike Vrabel, but that seems like kind of like a long shot at this point. I think Rex Ryan is in a name that's been thrown out there to watch out for as well. Trayvon Diggs put out there that he has the support of people like Al Harris. I don't know if that means he's saying he wants Al Harris to be the DC or if he just wants him to return to the Cowboys. But the names right now are only going to grow, and I feel like the Cowboys will have this week or so to figure it out. What I'm irritated about is that they let it get to this point without doing their research because they essentially said, "Hey, we'll just wait and see. We'll wait and see." And at this point, every other qualified defensive coordinator that could potentially take this defense to the next level has already taken another job somewhere. And that's the thing is the Cowboys await too much. Other teams are more aggressive. Other teams jump to that to that forefront. When it comes to Dan Quinn, it's since the Bill Parcells years. And Aaron, I think you're talking to me, but you're muted. So
No, I thought I lost you for a second. It was a pause for a second.
oh yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Um, but yeah, so I want to give Dan Quinn credit for that. But the way he left obviously left a sour note, and unfortunately, this season showed that I think teams started to figure out his scheme a little bit. They started to figure out how to punch holes in it, and ultimately, the guys that he wanted to fill his defense were really susceptible to the run. We saw it against Arizona, San Francisco, Buffalo, Green Bay. Other teams like Detroit tried to do, but they didn't really have the same sort of power effect at the outside that those other teams were able to cultivate. So I want to give him credit because he made like no one else except Dan Quinn saw Micah Parsons as anything other than an inside linebacker. Dan Quinn said, we might have something here of more than just a simple off-ball linebacker, and he turned him into one of, if not the best pass rusher in the NFL. So I want to give him credit for the time he's had here, but it's also possible that he not necessarily worn out his welcome, but he did as much here as he was going to do.
Yeah, coming from when he first got the job, what Mike Nolan did, and just how from it was like a complete 360 from what it was, where they couldn't they couldn't even stop a cold before they got Dan Quinn. To be honest with you, I'm gonna leave it at that. That's the nicest way I could put it. But it was just a matter of time for Dan Quinn was going to get a head coaching job for the Commanders because at the end of the day, I know a lot of us fans that before the end of the season were like we thought Dan Quinn was going to be a lifer for the Cowboys, but it wasn't going to be like that if he wasn't going to be the head coach. But there's a couple of coaches that I have in mind that are two familiar faces. That one of them has been going around is former defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer. I don't know if that's a big name that people want, but I've been hearing about that. And another one would be George Edwards. He was with the Cowboys when they got Michael Parsons. He was a guy that Michael Parsons seen as a mentor, and he was a co-defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings from 2014 to 2019, and then the 2014 season, their defense was allowed 21.4 points per game, ranked 11th in the NFL. And in 2015, they just allowed 18.9 and improved to being ranked fifth in the points per game. So that could be two potential guys that you could put on the list because I think they should take their time when it comes to trying to get a defensive coordinator, not just rush and get a guy. Try to interview a couple guys, see which guy could fit as the defensive coordinator.
Well, see now that all the prime, modern day defensive coordinator type guys are all taken, at least the ones I would consider, I'm okay with them taking their time, I guess. But at this point, I wish the Cowboys would have been a lot more aggressive. I would rather them talk to Dan Quinn and say, "Hey, Dan, are you going to come back to us, or are you going to take this job?" And unfortunately, they were left sort of in purgatory, having to wait. And that's the issue is that the Cowboys are always like picking up the crumbs rather than trying to take the first course. And the same thing in free agency. It's the whole comments about Jerry Jones going all in. We'll see where they go with this DC to just see just how much of this all in talk, which I've been sold snake oil before. I know what it looks like. We'll see just how much that looks like. But Ron Rivera does nothing for me. I think just because he was part of that Bears defense in the mid 2000s, which was one of the most dominant ones during that time, and he helped cultivate one of the better defenses in Carolina during Cam Newton's time there. And I think just because he had that sort of he had his defensive background and he has shown success on the defensive side of the ball. The truth be told is that teams have figured out his defensive scheme, and if you're unable to adapt to it, you get left behind. And what we saw in Washington was he sort of wasted a lot of really good defensive talent because teams were able to figure out his scheme. You can't have a defensive line composed of Chase Young, injury or not, I understand, but when he was on there, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and Deron Payne, and other guys that were also well on that line, like Matt Ioannidis when he was there, and other guys, that then just feels kind of wasted. So he does nothing for me in terms of moving the needle. But if I had my choice today of who I would want, I would go Mike Vrabel. In terms of realistic candidates, Joe Witt is my top option.
Because I've been hearing about Joe Witt potentially taking the defensive coordinator job for the Commanders. It's not set in stone, but that'd be one of the better ones. I know everybody likes the Al Harris, but he doesn't have the experience as a coordinator. But do you think I was thinking about this? Could you believe that? Would you think they would have like him as a coordinator and bringing in a guy like a coach like Mike Zimmer as like a kind of a consultant type of role, type of thing?
Mike Zimmer has too much of a history with the Jones family and the Cowboys. If the Cowboys bring in someone like Mike Zimmer, it's to be in a play calling, high profile position. He ain't gonna take a consultation. I know right now Mike Zimmer. I think he's a consultant. I think for
Jackson State.
Jackson State. Yeah, thank you. I knew it was an HBC. I didn't know which one it was. I remember them talking about that, but he was a consultant for Jackson State. But a lot of those is really just like he's getting his name back out there. It's sort of a do nothing job in that regard. But yeah, the Jones family and Zimmer still have a really good relationship. If they brought him back, it would be in a much more high profile role than just as a consultant.
Yeah, I was thinking there's something like I don't know if they would do like how they did with George Edwards as like a senior assistant or something. I was just thinking maybe that'd be an opportunity, but I get what you're saying with that. But I'm trying to see about I want to make sure I knocked on everything on that. But honestly, I hope, like you were saying, they shouldn't have wasted so much time, and they just kind of relaxed, like, okay, Dan Quinn's coming back and everything. We don't really need to worry about looking at any other guys. But now you're kind of looking at the guys that are like former defensive coordinators are kind of been in the league for a while. So like all those young minds that you could have potentially got, like when it came to the Baltimore Ravens. There, I remember you brought up a guy, what's the name? Zach Orr, who took the job as a
Yep.
defense coordinator for
Zach
the
Orr was one of those guys I would have liked to have had the chance, but he made honestly he made the right move just being elevated in Baltimore.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he started from being a solid linebacker for him. Then he dealt with some injuries and went from to a scout. And now a few years later, now he's the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. So a lot of those young guys that they could have potentially got are basically or been hired on other teams or just got promoted to defensive coordinators. So now you're kind of looking at, okay, you may have to go with the familiar faces or those veteran defensive coordinators. And you kind of running the risk, like, are they going to make those adjustments like during the game or so? Are they going to stick to their guns, like, oh, we just the our scheme is sticking, we're going to stick to our scheme, and then no matter what. What your biggest worry with these older defensive coordinators.
Nah, ultimately I agree, but which is why I'd rather them get like either someone in house or someone new.
Hopefully, it's in house, in my honest opinion, because a lot of those guys that you listed, and they didn't show where they just stick to their scheme, and that's about it. That was okay back in the earlier days, but now you got to make those adjustments, to like in the first, second quarter, and during halftime and everything. But I know we'll go to our next segment, which is the Senior Bowl, which has been actually pretty fun. So, do you have like do you have like your top four guys that you've been watching at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, the two guys that stood out the most, and pretty much everyone agrees. One is Toledo cornerback Quinn Mitchell, who is like some people talked about being a tweener pick between like a high first, low second, really good sticky man coverage corner, which works for the Cowboys' favor because their secondary is much better in man coverage than in zone. We saw what that secondary looked like in zone against Green Bay, so let's not go back to that. Um, Big physical corner, really good tackler from what, and this is obviously a report. Once I get my hands on the all 22, I'll be able to give my actual scouting reports. But he stood out a lot, and a guy who I really liked as a potential pick at 56, but now I think the Cowboys have to take him at number 24, is Oregon center Jackson Powers Johnson, or JPJ as they call him, who's been, some people think, is the best overall prospect at the Senior Bowl. He's been so effective in these practices that he has since left the Senior Bowl, because I think at this point he's cemented himself as a first-round draft pick. And because the Cowboys have a free agent in Tyler Biadasz, who I think they could upgrade anyway, I think he would be a prime candidate for that 24th overall pick, because offensive line is definitely going to be in conversation for that first one. Those are the top two ones. A few more other guys that I want to mention. A guy who I was a big fan of even before the Senior Bowl talk was Peyton Wilson, the linebacker from NC State, a really good coverage corner, 6'4", 235, really long and rangy. Has shown the ability to play Mike. I think he might be more of an outside linebacker type, more like a Will. Which, if you're someone who still believes in Damone Clark, then you say, okay, he's gonna be a depth piece behind him. But but who's gonna play Mike? And that might be something that we address in free agency, which we'll talk about here in a sec. And I think that he's one of those pet cat guys you like. He's really smart, really good at playing. The thing that's going to hurt him though is injuries. He's had issues with his shoulders and his legs. He's had injuries in the past couple of years. And the Cowboys have had a history of taking a chance on those injury type players, Jalen Smith, Damone Clark. But the good news about those guys is, and those are two recent examples, they're able to get the most out of those guys. And another guy I want to point out, because I know you want at least one. I know you're much more of an offensive guy, so I'll give you another offensive guy that I like. And and a guy that I really like is the Kansas State tight end. I forget his name. Hang on a second. I have to look at. I wrote this down. Hang on. I forgot his name. But I was a big fan of him.
Oh, good.
No, you're good. Ben Sinnott. Sorry, Ben Sinnott. He was in an offense that's really much more focused on the pass. He was a really surprising, effective receiver. Just under 50 catches, 6 touchdowns, but had over 12 yards per reception, and was a really good yardage after the catch type tight end. in a similar breath to what Jake Ferguson did, but obviously I think Jake Ferguson is a much more talented player. But I think even as a rookie, he would be an upgrade for anything else to have behind him because I did not like, and you remember this, I was not a fan of the Luke Schoonmaker pick. I thought he was one of those developmental guys who I was fine taking in the fourth round. I thought he was way too high of a reach in the second round. I think they took him there because there was a run on tight ends in the second round. They were desperate to get their guy, whatever. But I think Sanaa would be an improvement there just in terms of receiving. And as a run blocker, they talked about he's really good at setting the edges. I don't, but again, once I get the all 22 of these guys, I can give you much better breakdown of this because you know me, Aaron. When I actually get the tape of these guys, I can do a better breakdown. What I will say about Kansas State tight ends is they are established blockers coming in, and they have to become receivers. So that in and of itself, just coming from the Kansas State pedigree, is a solid look in that regard. So those are my guys.
Those are some really good ones. 3 of the 4 of the guys that actually were on my list. Trying to see who I had on
my. Pick 3 new ones. Come on, add some variety.
I'll give you 2. So I'm gonna look at I had him as my honorable mention, but I'm gonna do this. T'Vondre Sweat, nose tackle out of Texas.
I think he might be in play for the 24th pick. I love the idea of pairing him with Mozzie if they decide to keep Mozzie at 3 tech.
Yeah, that would probably be the best way to go, especially since he lost 30 pounds surprisingly, because we honestly thought he was going to be the 1 tech. But one thing I wanted to go into when it comes to T'Vondre Sweat, he was dominating one-on-ones, moving guards with ease, definitely seeing that power and that punch and keeping his legs moving during those drills. And for a guy that's like 300-plus pounds, he can move pretty quick, especially off his first step. I definitely give him. The only problem I have with him a little bit is just the hand placement, because sometimes you'll see the hands out here and you kind of want them more in there. But once he gets that together, he's going to be a really dominant nose tackle for some team.
Real quick, I just want to say, like, those hand placement guys, a lot of times they can get away with that in college because those guys are typically more powerful.
Yeah.
And power is a great thing to have. But as you saw from guys like Mozzie Smith who play with power, his issue was he can't get off the blocks fast enough. T'Vondre Sweat is faster off the block.
Oh,
but if you can't learn how to create leverage inside, the best offensive linemen, and the Cowboys face a lot of them, will figure you out. If you go up against someone like a Quentin Nelson, a Zach Martin, whoever, the best inside offensive linemen will figure you out, and they'll get inside you. It doesn't matter how powerful you are, they will get inside that guy. But that is something, lucky enough, that is fixable.
Yeah, and it'd be perfect if he did come to the Cowboys. He'll definitely learn about hand placement if he's going against Zach Martin during training camps and everything. So he's kind of in that. I don't know if you started kind of a list of guys you would like at 24, but there's a few of them I wouldn't be mad at.
Who's somebody else you like? Who's somebody else?
Who else I like at 24?
No, just another guy from the Senior Bowl that you saw. Give me an offensive guy that you've seen from the Senior Bowl practices. That
I got you.
Yeah.
One guy I liked is Roman Wilson, the 5'10", 184 wide receiver out of Michigan.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Real shifty guy.
Yeah, definitely a sub 4.4 guy. You can definitely see his speed out there, but he has a smooth change of direction when he's hitting the route or trying to just make that and it's not like clunky. It's not like he's forcing the move. It's just like he was just born to do that stuff. Not the biggest guy, but he's not afraid of contact. He has the long arms to stretch out and make those big catches, and he's just a smooth route runner with a yak ability. And do you remember that? Did you see that crazy one-arm catch he did on Quinn Mitchell?
Yeah, I've seen that play. Yeah. He's in the same breath as Brandon Cooks, but let me ask you this: just because the Cowboys have guys in that same bill, Brandon Cooks, Kevontae Turpin, like, would you? I'm okay with them going more speed, but would you look for maybe more size? Because I was looking at someone like a Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. He's got a running back build. I like those. Xavier Legette was my favorite receiver.
I was about to say him.
If they were going to target a receiver, he's my favorite.
Yeah. Roman Wilson more of a guy that I liked watching, but Xavier Legette would be definitely perfect just to have that bigger wide receiver out there, because we got the speed guys, but if you get one of those guys,
I know you like speed over power most of the time, though, right? You like those downfield guys.
Yeah, because we haven't had that. We didn't have that for the longest on this team. We kind of had the bigger guys, but they didn't have the hands at times. But I know we had the Dez Bryants, but it'd be nice to have another bigger guy out there because you already got the CD Lamb who's definitely shifty and is a route runner, and you got Brandon Cooks and you got Turpin. But it'd be perfect to have that big X and because I honestly think this that'd be an upgrade over Michael Gallup. I like Michael Gallup, but you could upgrade at that position. Oh,
I was nodding my head. I was agreeing with you. I
oh
figured
no.
that was the end of the segment. I was guessing.
Oh yeah. So our next segment is potential free agent for the Dallas Cowboys. Do you have like a top five? We can go. I can go with my first one, and then you can go with your next.
Well, so I was wondering, like, because when we talked about this, I guess I was confused. Did you mean like the top five overall, or just the top five like realistic ones that the Cowboys could get? Just
Realistic ones.
okay. Well, so my favorite one, and it's a popular one, is someone like Patrick Quinn,
Okay.
the inside linebacker from the Ravens. Especially just because it doesn't sound like that this linebacker class in this draft is like very deep, and you want an immediate impact player. And let's just say, for instance, that Jerry and company are serious about making more splash moves, like more immediate impact type players. Patrick Quinn would definitely fit that build, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially just because if they were to go in the first round with him, something like Jeremiah Trotter from Clemson, for example, that obviously would negate the need for someone like Patrick Quinn. But then you start to look at these other linebackers that are available. Jordan Brooks from Seattle, he's going to be available. He's solid. Josie Jewell from Denver, he's solid. But Patrick Quinn, to me, is the best linebacker that's available on the market. The thing that's going to be interesting is just because if they want to pay this. And according to Spotrac, is it Spotrac or Spotrac?
I think it's Spotrac. I call it Spotrac.
Okay, well, Spotrac, according to them, his estimated average annual salary is $18.5 million. Now, I already know. I'm pretty confident the Ravens won't pay that because they just got done paying Roquan Smith for good reason. Roquan Smith has established himself as maybe the best inside linebacker in the NFL, going from Chicago where he was a good linebacker to Baltimore where he's a great linebacker. And Patrick Queen's really stepped up this year as that second option. If he comes to the Cowboys, he would be the immediate plug-and-play guy at the Mike linebacker just because Leighton Vander Esch is likely done. Like they're talking about his injury is like probably career ended, and I'm tired of the Cowboys relying on guys that return from injury. Let's say he does get medically cleared. He's returning from injury. DeMarvin Overshown's returning from injury. I'm trying to think who else they had. Like they lost too many guys to injury, and they keep making this mistake. They keep making this mistake of like trying to rely on guys returning from injury. They made the mistake years ago of relying on Michael Gallup coming back, so they let go of Amari Cooper and they didn't re-sign Cedric Wilson, and the receiving corps struggled. They made the mistake of not really improving the backfield because they said, "Oh, Tony Pollard can be our guy," but they didn't have that reliable second option other than Rico Dowdle, but they didn't give him the ball near enough, and they didn't even have to shore up the offensive line. They've been doing the same mistake for years at offensive line, also for Tyron Smith. They have yet to find his suitor, and that should have been like something that should have been done like forever now. Whether or not you think Tyler Smith is his suitor or not is irrelevant, but they need to stop relying on guys coming back from injury to be starters and instead get guys who they think can start. Patrick Quinn would be top of my list. And then I would have guys like Derrick Henry is obviously a fun name. I think Gus Edwards is more realistic. He's estimated to get between $3 and $4 million per year. I also like an underrated guy that I like is Aaron Brewer. And Aaron Brewer is a 4-year starter for Tennessee who played a little bit of guard. He's primarily a center, not really a big guy. He's about 6'2", 290, but he's been really solid. And I think just because his estimated value, again, according to Spotrac, is $4.5 to $5.5 million per year. If they decide to go that route and they don't think they can get Jackson Powers Johnson in the draft, I think he would be at the very least a lateral move, maybe in some instances an upgrade because he apparently has a higher run block grade than Tyler Biadasz, especially if they want to establish the run. He would be a guy that I would look for as well.
Yeah, that'd be a good one, especially you kind of got me sold when it comes to being a better run blocker because that was kind of the biggest flaw when it came to Tyler Biadasz is you needed that center to be that mauler in the run game, and he wasn't that guy. And I know a lot of us thought because he came from Wisconsin, we're getting the second coming of Travis.
Tyler Biadasz really took a step back this year because last year he was much better. And to be fair, Tony Pollard does not have the same vision that he once did. No. I don't know if it's like not really trusting himself from injury, but the offensive line, run blocking wise, didn't do a great job this year overall. There were some games that did, but overall, no.
Yeah, it wasn't consistent enough. It was like you'd have a really good run game next game, and then it'd be like, okay, we're just kind of getting like 2 to 3 yards here and there. There wouldn't be no big plays. But I actually got you actually brought one of my guys, and that was Josie's Jewel, because I when you kind of look at the market, he
I
got
like Josie Jewell. Yeah,
yeah, kind of being that green dot guy and definitely being that inside guy as well. But there's another running back, two running backs that I wouldn't mind having on this team. They both different. The first one is Zach Moss, who stepped up when Jonathan Taylor was out with the contract holding the injuries. And I think could be that change of pace type of running back. He's a patient runner with good foot quickness, runs with power, and he can be a receiver out in the backfield. And then I think another guy I think would definitely be in the market of the Cowboys, Deontay Foreman, who's kind of more that power back and be that short yards goal line special that we've been needing for this team after Zeke. And I and then offers he could be that check down receiver as well and making plays in the screens. But if we don't get a nose tackle in the draft, I know of a guy, and that is Grover Stewart, who's more of the underrated one tech, who
love
ranked
it,
fifth,
love it.
who yeah, he ranked fifth among defensive tackles in run defense, graded like a 7.3 according to PFF. And he would be that starting run stuff in one tech that you need if you want to move on from Hankins. And now you could have another veteran involved into that defensive line where you could put Mozzie Smith at three tech, and you'll have him, and you have Osa, and then you could draft another defensive tackle. I think they're gonna move on from Gallimore. Just have a good rotation. But I did have to bring in a Stephen Jones special, and you know those guys that are first round guys that are
Yeah,
yeah
I know what you
yeah
mean. Former first rounders who were cheaper on their second deals.
yeah. I had to put one on there because it's gonna happen in this free agency, and that it's a guy that they were high on and during the draft. It was during the CD draft, and that is Caleb Von Chasen, who
Mm, the
I
defensive
think
end, yeah.
yeah, I think he would be that guy that go into that Dante Fowler type of role.
Dante Foreman. You already mentioned running back.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking of that, but yeah, Dante Fowler type of role, because I think Fowler would be probably on the Commanders this year because he's a Dan Quinn guy. So I think having him, because I looked at on Spotrac that Caleb Von Chasen is, I think his market is like 3 million. So that's kind of in that range of a Stephen Jones type of role. A guy that's dealt with injuries, really hasn't made his mark in the NFL, but he could be like a rotational guy, not a starter. But I think just being like a pass rush specialist. But those are my main guys on this list.
I love a lot of those names. Grover Stewart's another one of those guys. He's coming off a 10 mil per year deal, so he's likely to get less. He'll be 30 this year. Uh, he's if he can agree to, I think somewhere between 5 and 7 is going to be his number. He'll be a guy that I would love the Cowboys to get, just because I don't want us to rely on Mozzie holding up and improving next year. I don't want us to rely on players improving the next step this year, because his rookie class did almost near nothing. And if let's say Jonathan Hankins, even if he does come back, are we going to rely on him and his health and his age to keep up all season? Grover Stewart would be a huge boost, and I would love that move.
Yeah, if they get a guy like Grover Stewart, I will for this year I won't call him cheap because he actually got a quality defensive lineman.
We'll see.
Yeah, it would be nice for them to get guys like that and not just rely on guys that they had last year. Like, oh, we got Jonathan Hankins back, but he dealt with injuries in the last of the season. Like you're saying, you want somebody that you can rely on to be there. And when it comes to Grover Stewart, he's been healthy throughout his career. He just a lot of people don't talk about it because he's on a smaller market team like the Colts. But if you look deep into it, like, okay, this man can ball. He's 30 years old, so like you were saying, that 10 million is probably gonna be like that 5 to 7 range. If you can get Grover Stewart for like 7 mil and kind of maybe doing a 2 or 3 year deal, hey, that'd be perfect to have him on the team.
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm even down for Josie Jewell. I think that'd be he ain't a world beater at Mike linebacker, but he's a good run defender, and he knows how to play the Mike better than who you got.
Yeah, like if you get like solid guys that make an impact on your team, that's perfect. You just get guys that can make an impact, not just rely on guys that been on this team and just like we've been talking about, don't have injured, just rely on the injured guys. Like, oh, we think he could be that guy, but he's coming off an ACL injury, and we don't have a good record when it comes to guys coming off ACL injuries the next year, and you can't rely on that. But
No, Michael Gallup, Terrence Steele, list goes on. Yep.
yep. But man, it's been a great show. But we'll definitely be back. We're gonna do a little Super Bowl thing. We'll have that in the work and everything. But this has been tacos and touchdowns. Before I let you go, Shane, is there anything that you got going on?
Nothing. I've been doing a lot more radio producing. I've been able to get on the air a whole bunch, which has been a lot of fun. Obviously,
So,
I've become essentially the lead producer for Spurs Radio, which has been a really fun, really great experience for me. I get to work with some great people, including Bill Shonen, the voice of the Spurs, former voice of the Longhorns, and it's been a good year for me in terms of being able to talk and be talked back to in the sport world.
congratulations on that, bro. That's well deserved. But yeah, this has been tacos and touchdowns. I hope y'all have a great week. I hope y'all get to check out the Senior Bowl as well. But y'all have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.